Yo, what's up, one Chen VTuber gang? So,
Hey,
let's talk about why communism doesn't work in China. By the way, I mean, I'm just gonna say, bro,
that's
if we're
so if you
talking
don't know,
about communism, like, China doesn't even have, like, it's not even that communistic because, unironically,
who
China is, like, it has socialism and it's, like,
Jackson Hinkle is, he's basically a
capitalistic.
Nazi leaning communist, so
So, if you're, like, saying go fully communistic, like, that is retarded as fuck, bro. Like, bro, nobody will ever want a country to actually go full communist. Like, if Hassan Biker is saying that go communist, then bro, that guy's like actually inbred and brain dead.
a so-called
But like, only because of his opinion. I'm not saying he's actually anything, but because of his opinions, like,
conservative communist and co-founder of the American Communist Party, who, like many Yankees
brainless.
wanting to push the claim that communism can work, have been desperately clinging to China as if it's the ultimate example of communist success. In fact, Hinkle's pretty much been doing this on
bro,
Twitter every single day. It's rare a day goes by that he doesn't post effectively the exact same post. This post that just consists of a claim that China is proof that communism works,
yikes.
alongside either a picture or most of the time
So you show like, you show a big ass city of like 50 million people living in there, and you're like, oh guys, communism works.
a video of
But like, you don't even know how, like, bro, they don't achieve that by literally fully going communistic, bro. Like, it's not full communism. It's literally capitalistic.
some Chinese skyline at night. Sometimes it's Shenzhen, or it could be
I mean, Twitter is like literally about shitposting, so
Shanghai or Guangzhou. Doesn't really matter which one it is.
I mean, he's literally rage baiting.
All the posts are
If you get rage baited, you're retarded, so
effectively the same.
yeah.
Just about every day ad nauseum. Now, even though I have already made a longer video on this subject, explaining in detail why trying to claim that China is successful communism is a very, very false claim, I figured it would be useful to have a quick rant video as well that more specifically focuses on just the point that
whoever keeps talking about China being like, guys, it's the proof, China's communism, China's communism. It works, guys. There is the proof, guys.
Hinkle
Like, they know it's not even like about that, bro.
is trying to push here.
Like, they're
Of saying, oh wow, look how
rage
advanced
baiting, bro.
these cities look,
They know
therefore communism works. And I'll be showing why this is
Even
not
they know
only
it doesn't
entirely false, but when you understand exactly why this take from Hinkle is false, you'll realize that these hot RGB Chinese skylines are actually one of the biggest experiments proving that communism does not work. So let's just get started with asking, okay, why do these cities look like this? Well, there's three reasons as to why. The first and most obvious is that these
light pollution.
cities are actually just kind of new. Most Chinese cities really only started looking like this at the end.
True. It's all like, everything is modern. Because like, China was basically, if you're talking about GDP, bro, China was actually so fucking down bad, like, it was basically negatives, bro. But then it like grew up to be basically top 1 or top 2, like, most richest country. But like, true, they have like a hella big population too, so that contributes.
20th century or towards the beginning of the 21st century. If you look at photos of, say, New York City and compare them to photos of Chinese cities in the mid-1900s or even early 1900s, you'll see a pretty big difference. So for instance, in the United States, let's take a look at the Times Square. Here's a photo of New York City in the mid-1900s, and here's that same...
Because trading has always been a thing, bro. You cannot take away trading from like humans or from any animal
area of the Times Square today. And while there is
like,
definitely some differences here, you'll notice it's not huge differences. It's really just been updated for current modern technology. More lights, more billboards, more businesses, more electricity. And of course, some differences in culture that have happened throughout the years.
Better education.
For better or for worse. While technology in the mid-1900s version is obviously not as advanced, it hasn't really changed horribly. But for the most part, it's pretty well developed. If you look at this at a very quick 1-second glance, you might be able to convince yourself that it's a modern photo. It becomes obvious that it isn't when you look at the cars for more than just a glance. They're very obviously mid-1900s cars. But it at least kinda passes the glance test. Whereas
oh, what?
obviously mid-1900s cars. But it at least kinda passes...
Bro, If you go to any EU city, bro, they literally look way better.
This is the glance test.
If you look at the glance, it passes the test. What?
Whereas China, on the other hand, if you look at this from Travel China on Instagram, we suddenly see quite the transformation. A lot of these Chinese skylines that we're seeing being posted by Hinkle back in the mid-1900s, they were either sparsely populated farming towns with almost no development at all, or they were poorly developed shanty towns that very clearly show the typical signs of a poor country. The buildings look cheap, poorly planned, and almost as if they're rotting. And so you could easily tell yourself, okay, waking up in New York in 1950s, that wouldn't be so bad of a life. Whereas you probably wouldn't say the same thing about China in the 1900s. And why is that relevant? Well, because these cities are new, that means they were built and developed based on, new standards. It's a lot easier to install that dank RGB lighting when you're building the building in an era where that technology has been better fleshed out. That's pretty much it. But that, of course, then just...
I mean, it's also cooler, bro. Who wouldn't want to live in like a cool-ass view, bro? Like,
brings us to another question, which brings us to our second reason. Why are these buildings so new? Why didn't China build them until the later half of the 20th
because they didn't have the resource for that
century? Why did China wait so long to actually have some
Why did China wait so long? Why wasn't China doing this earlier?
Somewhat decent urban development? And that's where we run into the first major problem of what Jackson Hinkle is trying to push here. Economic growth under Mao Zedong in China during the rise of the Chinese Communist Party was effectively zero back then, thus stalling any real serious Chinese urban development plans until after Mao Zedong passed away. This is why quite possibly the most insane communist lie that still persists and Tinky's still pushed today is trying to say that China reduced the most...
Yeah, because GDP per capita is basically all that matters. I mean, not really, but like, basically, because that shows how developed the country actually is.
Amount of global poverty. Well, the reason China was
if GDP per capita is high, it means the country isn't like in poverty, obviously.
Able to reduce the most amount of global poverty is because nearly all of the global poverty back then in the later half of the 20th century was in China. If you look at China's privatization graph of their economy and look at their poverty graph at around roughly the same time frame, you will see that they are clearly reverses of each other, which means it's kind of like patting yourself on the back for coming in last in the race by rewording it as saying, hey, I ran the longest. It's a completely ridiculous argument to make. It's just using semantics to avoid the reason as to why.
Like, I wonder if those Chinese haters are like, they're like pro Japan, bro. Like, yo, Japan is way better than China. I wonder if they think like that.
If you're in the top 10 countries per size and population, and your country is the last country to develop itself to the point where its global poverty rating holds steady at below 5%, well, during that time frame where they were the last country to do that, well, then of course they're going to be the ones who reduce the most amount of global poverty. It's an amazingly stupid argument when you realize the trick behind it. Which then brings us to the third reason. Okay, so what changed after Zedong fell? Well, next up came the reign of Deng Xiaoping, and under his rule in the CCP in the late 1970s, China established what you can call special economic zones.
I mean, no shit, bro. Once internet was developed, I mean, literally every country had a plume of
These were
economy
experimental areas where they had significantly relaxed market regulations. Or in other words, these were zones where they would abolish their communist policies in terms of how the market would function. And so while these areas would still be under the wing of the CCP, these areas were now under a capitalist experiment. And so more free trade, reduced taxes, less rules against foreign investment, less CCP meddling in bureaucracy, and privatization of industry. Or to put it simply, the special economic zones policy was basically just the CCP implementing capitalism, but only in specific areas of China, not China as a whole. And so then, of course, you might be wondering.
And if you have progressive tax system, how the fuck are you even communist? Like what?
Okay, well, what were these special economic zones? Where were these areas that the CCP decided to allow some capitalism? Well, here's a map of the special economic zones right here. Places like Shenzhen, Shanghai, and a bunch of coastal areas like Guangzhou. Yep, that's pretty much it. Quite a few zones, actually. And now, you might remember from the start of this video that those names might sound a little bit familiar to you. Which then brings us to this. Here is a map of the places that Jackson Hinkle is largely pulling from when he's posting videos of the Chinese skyline. And now, of course, you might be wondering, wait a minute, Mentis, this is exactly the same map as the map you just showed where China decided to try capitalism. And you would be correct. Yes, it is exactly the same map, at least for the most part. The vast majority of the time when Jackson Hinkle is posting these Chinese skylines, he is showing you a video of a skyline of a city where the Chinese Communist Party stepped away from and allowed capitalism as an experiment. In other words, it's the largest scale experiment that it's capitalism that works. The communists stepping away and
I mean, that's literally like
allowing a
just like we said, bro, that is rage bait deluxe max, bro.
Free market capitalist economy to flourish in certain areas, but within the same country, thus controlling for ethnicity, culture, education, etc., etc. And so the normal commie cope of saying embargoes or something like that, where they claim that a communist country only failed because of embargoes like Cuba, well, those kind of ridiculous excuses don't work here anymore because it's within the same freaking country. And so when Hinkle is posting these videos and saying this is proof that communism works, he is showing you a video of a skyline of
he's showing how capitalism works.
City in China
that is funny.
That was designated as a special economic zone where they would no longer be operating under communist policies, but instead were operating under capitalist policies. And the only exceptions of the times where he posts a city that wasn't an SEZ, it's a city that's within the same metro area, and so thus they economically benefited from the same policies, as opposed to showing pictures of inland China that were not anywhere near these SEZs, because of course a lot of them still have dirt roads and are poorly developed and effectively still look like a third world country. And yes, that is completely as ridiculous as it sounds. When you understand the trick and the history behind it, it becomes obvious that this is an absolutely insane lie. Which then brings us to our bonus question. If it's such an obviously false narrative that Hinkle is pushing here, then
why do people believe this?
He's pushing it. And well, that's exactly the reason why he's pushing it.
Because he gets views from people that are retarded. Duh.
One of the most bizarre and most brazen tactics of communists is to
Because like, those anti-China people are gonna be like, yo guys.
Proudly and boldly.
Or like, people that support terrorism and can also like
tell absolutely insane lies through their teeth while completely ignoring all evidence to the contrary. You can kind of think of it as a tactic of, okay, if we just scream our lies loud enough and hard enough and long enough, our lies will blot out the sound of truth. It's a tactic entirely designed to just drown out the refutations. The fact that Hinkle's point here is just an obviously false narrative actually in some ways is to his benefit, because an average normal responsible person, a normal reasonable person, would usually assume that nobody would be insane enough to tell a lie this ridiculous. And
bro, only on Twitter, bro. Only on Twitter.
To tell it.
If you say a lie like that on fucking TikTok
over and over again. And so thus people who are not informed on the matter end up becoming more likely to fall for those lies. Or to use a pop culture reference, as much as I dislike doing so, a really good example here would be like the demons from Freyren. In Freyren, demons, they just kind of act like humans and they look like humans, but their psychology is completely different. The demons in Freyren, for them, words are just sounds that they use to deceive humans. They don't actually care about what they're saying. They don't actually have emotions or feelings. They just use words to make it appear like they do in order to trick humans into letting them eat them. By pretending to have morals and pretending to be similar, the humans are tricked into letting their guard down because they take what the demons are telling them at face value without realizing that they're talking to a demon. That's basically the same tactic that the communists are using here. They're taking advantage of the good faith and good nature of the average person and using that against them because the average person would assume that nobody would tell a lie this ridiculous. But the sad truth is that's exactly what Hinkle is doing. Jackson Hinkle knows darn well that what he's saying here is a lie. I can guarantee you that the—
Wait, is he comparing a person to a fucking anime like antagonist? No, that's not even antagonist, that is like villain, bro. What the fuck?
Chances are very close to zero that Hinkle does not know that he is just posting skylines of special economic zones in the end of the 20th century in China. He has been in the business of politics and history long enough to be perfectly well versed enough in the history of China to know darn well that what he is saying is not true. He knows that these posts are nothing more than ridiculous propaganda for his ideology. And the reason he posts it anyway is simply because he knows that there's enough gullible people out there who will fall for it. Because ultimately Hinkle—
Why? Because it's Twitter, bro. Nobody gives a fuck about Twitter, bro.
Is just
bro, if you actually think people care about what like others say on Twitter, I mean that is retarded, bro. Because like
a grifter. He games
unironically
the algorithm by making
Twitter is not a site that you like actually fucking.
Outlandish claims, fools people into giving him money by being confident in his lies, and that's really all there is to it. And so that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching.
Like, it's literally a shitpost site, bro. Like, yeah. Twitter is, like, you should never fucking take something seriously from Twitter. I don't know, bro. Like, very credible source, but yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and join my Discord in the description. Thank you. Bye, guys.